Have you ever walked into a room and instantly felt the energy shift? Maybe it was a family gathering where two relatives, who never get along, suddenly started laughing together, or maybe it was a workplace meeting where, out of nowhere, the person who always challenged the boss started nodding in agreement. You can't quite put your finger on it, but you know something happened behind the scenes, something you weren't meant to see. That's the feeling sweeping across the political world right now. The headlines are screaming, Mamdani just folded and tries to build good relationship with Trump. The untold story of political backroom deals. And whether you're a political junkie or just someone trying to make sense of the world, you can't help but wonder, what's really going on here? What happened in those rooms we'll never enter, in those conversations we'll never hear? Let's be honest. Most of us have felt at one time or another like we're on the outside looking in. We see the polished speeches, the carefully crafted tweets, the photo ops, and the handshakes. But deep down, we know that the real decisions, the ones that shape our lives, are made somewhere else. Somewhere quieter, somewhere darker, somewhere we're not invited. It's a feeling that's both infuriating and oddly familiar, because in a way it mirrors our own lives. How many times have you felt like the rules were being written without your input? Like the big decisions, at work, at school, even in your own family, were made in whispered conversations, behind closed doors. It's a universal experience, and it's one that leaves us hungry for answers. So let's set the scene. The world right now feels like a chessboard in the middle of a high-stakes game. Pieces are moving, alliances are shifting, and the outcome is anything but certain. We're living in a time of deep division, where trust in institutions is at an all-time low, and the line between friend and foe seems to blur more every day. And then, out of nowhere, comes the news. Mamdani, once a vocal critic of Trump, a symbol of resistance for many, has not only softened his stance, but is actively seeking a good relationship with the very person he once opposed. The internet erupts. Supporters feel betrayed. Opponents gloat, and everyone, it seems, is asking the same question. Why? But maybe the better question is, what don't we know? What's happening in the shadows, in the backrooms, in the spaces where power is really wielded? Let's talk about backroom deals. The phrase itself conjures up images of smoke-filled rooms, whispered promises, and secret handshakes. It's the stuff of political thrillers and conspiracy theories, but it's also undeniably a part of how the world works. From the earliest days of democracy to the present, the most consequential decisions are rarely made in the spotlight. They're made in private, away from the cameras, by people who understand that power is as much about relationships as it is about principles. But why do these deals happen? Why do people, good people, principled people, sometimes make choices that seem to go against everything they once stood for? The answer, I think, lies in the messy, complicated reality of being human. We like to imagine that our leaders are different from us, that they're immune to pressure, temptation, and fear. But the truth is, they're just as vulnerable as anyone else. They face impossible choices, conflicting loyalties, and the constant threat of losing everything they've worked for. I've noticed in my own life that the moments when I felt most compromised weren't the result of some grand betrayal. They were the result of 1,000 small pressures, an expectation here, a favor there, a fear of disappointing someone I cared about. It's rarely a single dramatic moment. It's a slow, almost imperceptible drift, and that's what makes backroom deals so powerful and so dangerous. They're not always about corruption or malice. Sometimes they're about survival. Sometimes they're about trying to do the right thing in a world that punishes honesty and rewards cunning. But here's the thing. Every deal has a cost. Every compromise, every handshake, every whispered promise leaves a mark, not just on the people involved, but on all of us. Because when the rules are written in secret, trust begins to erode. And when trust is gone, what's left? As we dig deeper into this story, I want you to keep that question in mind. Because the untold story of political backroom deals isn't just about Mamdani or Trump. It's about all of us. The choices we make, the values we hold, and the world we want to build. Let's pull back the curtain a little further. What really happens in those backrooms? What drives people, sometimes the very people we admire, to make deals that seem to defy logic, principle, or even common sense? To answer that, we have to look at the forces that shape human behavior. Psychologists talk about the shadow self, the part of us that we hide from the world, the part that's driven by fear, insecurity, and the need for approval. In politics, the shadow self is always lurking. It's the voice that whispers, if you don't play the game, you'll be left behind. It's the fear of irrelevance, of losing power, of being forgotten. But it's not just about fear, it's also about hope. The hope that, by making a deal, you can achieve something good. Maybe you can protect your community, pass a law, or prevent a disaster. Maybe, just maybe, you can make a difference. History is full of examples. Think of the secret meetings that ended the Cold War, or the back-channel negotiations that led to peace in the Middle East. These weren't acts of cowardice. They were acts of pragmatism, of recognizing that sometimes the only way forward is through compromise. But compromise is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's the foundation of democracy, the art of finding common ground, of building coalitions, of making progress in a divided world. On the other hand, it can feel like a betrayal, especially when the stakes are high and the issues are deeply personal. I've noticed that in my own life, the hardest decisions are the ones that force me to choose between my ideals and my relationships. Do I stand firm, even if it means losing friends, or do I bend, hoping that I can make a difference from the inside? It's a question that haunts anyone who ever tried to change the world. And that's the dilemma facing leaders. Like Mamdani on the surface, it looks like a simple case of folding under pressure. But beneath the surface, it's a tangled web of competing interests, hidden agendas, and impossible choices. Let's use an analogy. Imagine you're playing a game of chess, but the rules keep changing. Every time you make a move, someone whispers in your ear, if you do that, you'll lose your queen. Or, if you don't make this trade, you'll never win. The pressure is relentless, the stakes are high, and the outcome is never certain. That's what it's like to navigate the world of political backroom deals. Every decision is a gamble. Every alliance is a risk, and the only thing you can count on is that, sooner or later, you'll have to make a choice that someone will see as a betrayal. But here's the twist. Sometimes the deals that look like betrayals are actually acts of courage. Sometimes, reaching across the aisle, making peace with an enemy, or building a relationship with someone you once opposed, is the bravest thing you can do. Think of Nelson Mandela, who forgave his jailers and worked with his former enemies to build a new South Africa. Or think of the countless activists who, after years of fighting, sat down with their opponents to find a way forward. These weren't acts of weakness, they were acts of strength, of recognizing that the only way to change the world is to engage with it, flaws and all. But that doesn't mean we should accept every deal, or excuse every compromise. We have a responsibility to ourselves, to each other, to the future, to hold our leaders accountable, to demand transparency, and to insist that the rules are fair and just. So what does this mean for us? Right now, as we watch the story of Mamdani and Trump unfold, it means we have to look beyond the headlines, beyond the outrage, beyond the easy answers. We have to ask hard questions, to seek out the untold stories, to listen for the truths that aren't being spoken. And we have to remember that in the end, the power to shape the future doesn't belong to the people in the back rooms. It belongs to us. So where do we go from here? How do we move forward in a world where backroom deals seem to shape our destiny, where trust is fragile, and where the line between principle and pragmatism is always shifting? The first step, I think, is to reclaim our sense of agency. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of secret deals, hidden agendas, but the truth is, every one of us has the power to make a difference, by asking questions, by demanding accountability, by refusing to accept the status quo. I've noticed that the most powerful moments in my life have come when I stopped waiting for someone else to fix things, and started taking action myself. It doesn't have to be dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as having a difficult conversation, standing up for what you believe in, or reaching out to someone you disagree with. The second step is to cultivate empathy. It's easy to judge from a distance, to see every compromise as a betrayal, every deal as a sellout. But when we take the time to understand the pressures, the fears, and the hopes that drive people's decisions, we open the door to real change. Empathy doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or accepting injustice. It means recognizing that we're all human, that we all make mistakes, and that we all have the capacity to grow. The third step is to build community. The most effective way to counter the power of backroom deals is to create spaces where people can come together, share their stories, and work toward common goals. When we build strong, transparent, and inclusive communities, we make it harder for secrets to thrive, and easier for truth to emerge. And finally, we have to hold on to hope. It's easy to become cynical, to believe that nothing will ever change, that the game is rigged, and the deck is stacked against us. But history is full of moments when ordinary people, working together, changed the course of events. Think of the civil rights movement, the fall of the Berlin Wall, the countless acts of courage and solidarity that have shaped our world. These weren't the result of backroom deals. They were the result of people coming together, refusing to accept injustice, and demanding something better. So, as we watch the story of Mamdani and Trump unfold, let's remember that the untold story of political backroom deals is just about what happens in secret. It's about what happens when we shine a light on those secrets, when we ask hard questions, when we refuse to be silent. It's about the power of ordinary people to demand transparency, to insist on accountability, and to build a world where the rules are written in the open. not in the shadows. If you've ever felt powerless, if you've ever wondered whether your voice matters, I want you to know it does. Every question you ask, every conversation you start, every time you refuse to accept the easy answer, you're making a difference. So let's keep asking questions. Let's keep demanding better. Let's keep building a world where the untold stories are brought into the light, where backroom deals are replaced by open dialogue, and where every one of us has a seat at the table. Thank you for being part of this conversation. If this resonated with you, if you believe in the power of truth and transparency, I invite you to share your thoughts, to connect with others, and to keep pushing for the world we all deserve, because the untold story isn't finished yet, and together we can write the next chapter.